Live from the Talking Joe studios, it's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I.Joe comics podcast. Now, today we are returning back to the distant past of 2004 and the G.I. Joe Reloaded continuity by looking at G.I. Joe Reloaded issues 1 through 6. But I will not be doing that alone. As always, I will be joined by my co-host. It's the real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, listeners, viewers. Hello.
Hello. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you're new to Talking Joe. We've got a website, talkingjoe.co.uk. Check it out. Now, Tim, we're checking out G.I. Joe Reloaded issues 1 through 6, partly because there's so many comics being released that I wanted to get through this continuity in this era without spreading it out over another year. So, and given how many comics Skybound are releasing, I thought I'd take this opportunity to make a good dent into this part of G.I. Joe comics history. And the reason we picked 1 through 6 was that is how it was collected by Devil's Due back in the day, with the first and only reloaded trade paperback, which collected those issues 1 through 6.
So Reloaded went for, is it 16 issues?
14 issues total,
so
with 2 previews: Cobra Reloaded, then G.I. Joe Reloaded, then
preludes, not previews.
Oh, did I say preludes? Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a graphic novel that collects G.I. Joe Reborn and Cobra Reborn. I guess it's Cobra Reborn was first. Cobra Reborn and G.I. Joe Reborn. And then there's a graphic novel that collects Reloaded 1 through 6. And then Reloaded 7 through 14 were not collected by Devil's Due.
Hmm.
Did IDW? No, IDW did not collect Reloaded. So issues 7 through 14 of Reloaded have never been reprinted in America.
I think so.
Okay.
But it has been collected by at least one person into a nice hardbound book. That person being me.
What names do you have on the bottom of the spine?
What did I do? I've got
Ney Reiber,
Jenkins, Dixon.
Okay.
So I've gone for the writers.
The writers, not the artists. So if you're listening, not watching, or new to the show, Mark has sent off his issues of G.I. Joe from many different publishers and continuities to be custom bound. And they all have green spines, look like custom bound books at libraries. And there's a whole shelf full of them with some G.I. Joe figures in front of them. Okay, so we spent so much time in our episode on Cobra Reborn and G.I. Joe Reborn setting up sort of what comics and Devil's Due and G.I. Joe was in 2004. I don't want to spend that time again. We'll just assume that either people remember that or they're just going to jump in with us. But I do want to say that G.I. Joe Reloaded issue number 1 is an issue number 1. But in terms of the story, it really is a third issue.
Mm.
And since those 2 specials were each 40 pages, in some ways, it's almost like a 5th issue in terms of how much story has happened. And I'm glad you put this first page up on screen, where it's the inside front cover of what must be issue 1. Were you going to do a plot breakdown? Or are we going to?
Yeah, I'll do
this text. This text is really interesting. The first paragraph and the final paragraph. I wanted to talk about this.
Do you want to talk about it now or later?
Yeah. So Devil's Due was aware that this new continuity would be exciting, could be confusing, and wanted to assure people that they could get into this, but that also the existing continuity was still going. And so the paragraph reads at the top, I'll do it in my worst Jackson Beck impression. G.I. Joe Reloaded is a comic book series for both new and veteran fans of the G.I. Joe mythos, starting the story from scratch and revising the team's formation for modern times. Reloaded offers a chance to jump into the G.I. Joe world without worrying about the continuity of years past. Even the most hardcore fans never know what's going to happen next, and no character is safe. And then at the end, I almost want to do this in my Josh Blaylock impression, and I don't have a Josh Blaylock impression. So to enjoy the rich history of continuity of the original G.I. Joe versus Cobra storyline, please read G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, currently in its third year of publication from Devil's Due Publishing. So the comparison is in how now in 2025, 2026, Skybound tells you about or doesn't tell you about the other G.I. Joe when you're reading one of them. So at the end of the Energon Universe G.I. Joe issues, there is no advertising for the A Real American Hero book. And I think usually at the end of there've been a couple issues where maybe there was like when it came back, when they both came back, each of them had an ad for the other. But now that they're established, they don't have ads for each other. And there isn't like a paragraph blurb on the inside front cover where the credits are saying, oh, by the way, there's that other G.I. Joe in case you're worried.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did sort of hone in on those two blocks of text myself, sort of like they've really put out a mission statement saying what this book is for. And then they've also pointed out, that other continuity that or might be aware of is also out there and being published. And maybe if this isn't for you, then check out the other one, kind of thing. But also in the middle block of text, there's a recently, and given this is an issue number 1, there's a big block of text to bring you up to speed with what you already need to know for this accessible continuity that they're creating with a brand new number 1.
This reminds me, jumping back to a Skybound comparison again, recently we interviewed Alex Antone, editor of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, and he made the point that a year ago, during the month that Silent Missions, those 5 specials were released weekly, that was a skip month for the regular Larry Hama, A Real American Hero issue. And that made sense to you and I at the time, because, G.I. Joe fans are getting plenty. This year in 2026, they won't be doing that. The Silent Missions month will have both 5 specials and also a new Larry Hama issue. And he said that store owners were confused or maybe didn't order the next issue of A Real American Hero in sort of established quantities, having had a skip month. Like, maybe they lost some momentum. The series lost some momentum. And I think about what the risk is if you publish an issue 1 that also has a special and a special that come before it that don't have the same title. And it turns out, I think history bears out, it was not a good idea. I think there are other issues. I think there are there's other
factors.
Proof here. Yes, thank you. There are other factors here that show that it didn't work in terms of story and character, and how quickly the creative teams changed, and then that the series did not stick around. And that when you and I talk about G.I. Joe with people, Reloaded doesn't really get mentioned, and I feel like its sort of quiet influence is what you and I said in a previous episode, sort of the power of those 2 Tim Bradstreet covers, and then the sort of visual for Storm Shadow, which definitely looks ahead to influences the first live action film, and maybe Cobra Commander's look, and that's about it. But, I don't bump into people who say, like, oh, Reloaded is my favorite G.I. Joe continuity, or like, oh, if only they could do 3 more issues and get the team back together and finish the Reloaded story. People don't say that, and is what I mean.
They don't say that, no, but also I was thinking ahead to the end, how it ends, that it's not necessarily calling out for it to be finished, in inverted can't.
Oh, you mean
inverted
issue
commas.
14, which I have never
Yeah,
read.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
that can be something that maybe we can return to when we talk about issue 14.
I just want to do a quick reminder, one more bit of context. When these came out, I did buy the Cobra special. You know, I had read the first 9 or 10 issues of the Devil's Due series. I had bailed. I had come back for issue 21. Frontline was running by now. I read those first 4 issues by Larry Hama. They're okay. And Hama even says that. Hama's like, that's the worst thing I've ever written. And when these 2 specials came out, I got them. And I don't remember how far into Reloaded I lasted. I think it was 2 issues. It might have been 3. And so I'm sort of having some deja vu with the beginning of me co-hosting Talking Joe, because we started with a reread of 2001 Devil's Due. And I was rereading those issues that I'd read, and then very quickly we were into issues that I had never read. And I was sort of grappling with, well, I didn't like them at the time. Do I see them differently now? And it turns out I didn't love Reloaded at the time. And here's our teaser for the episode, folks. How do I feel now?
Very good. Cool. So G.I.Joe Reloaded issues 1 through 6 was published by Devil's Due in the year 2004. It was brought to us by the creative team of Story, John Ney Reiber, Pencils, Eddie Barrows, Javier Saltares, Ron Lim, and Jason Millett. Inks, Andrew Pepoy. Colors, Transparency Digital. Letters, Dreamer Design. Graphic design, Mike Norton. Military consultation, Tillman Goines. And editor, we think mostly Mark Powers.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
So the front cover that I've got up on screen first is the trade paperback, subtitled In the Name of Patriotism, which collects the first 6 issues together. It's a bit of a montage. Looks like it's got the Constitution framing Cobra Commander's mug with some panels from the book behind him. And the main image is a recycling of an image of Cobra Commander created by Adi Granov, which was featured on the front cover to issue number 1.
Okay. So what do you do to get attention? You get a really talented, splashy, and or hot artist. The 2 Reborn specials, Bradstreet, check. Issue 1, Adi Granov, who had wowed people on the relaunch of Iron Man that Warren Ellis wrote, which gave us what's that story called? I'm blanking. With the nanites. Sorry. Anyway, it's in the 3rd movie.
Extremis.
Thank you. Extremis. Thank you.
And it may have actually been after this, because it looks like that was published 2005.
Wait. The issues or the collection?
I'm trying to double check, fact check myself. January 2005 it came out.
Okay. Wow. Well, I haven't done my prep because I don't know I can't remember what Granov was known for before, because he did that Iron Man arc and then was hired to do concept art for the first Iron Man film, which was released in 2008. And then he did 2 issues of the Will Never Be Finished miniseries, Iron Man Viva Las Vegas. Well, we've established that Devil's Due had a good eye for plucking some good young talent who might not stick around because there were other projects that they would get wooed away for, like Stefano Caselli. Speaking of G.I. Joe artists. Okay, so Granov draws digitally. I guess it's pencils, right? And then digitally colors.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, thank you. This cover to issue 1. And also, I'll hold it up, the cover to issue 2 and the cover to issue 3. And what I'm going to jump ahead for a second. What 2 and 3 have in common is Washington, D.C. So the cover to 3, Roadblock is in front of the Lincoln Memorial. He's up on the actual platform that you can go up the stairs to get to. And the cover to 2 has Scarlet and Snake Eyes grappling in, I don't know, some smoke, some mist, the reflecting pool. It sort of looks like it's raining because there's some vertical white lines up at the top of the neoclassical architecture. But I love Granov's stuff, but these 3 covers to me demonstrate that his strength is in figural work and leather and metallic textures. His strength is not in backgrounds and not always the strongest compositions. I sort of know where Snake Eyes and Scarlet are here, but I don't actually know. And this looks sort of not photo reference. This looks like, those buildings in DC. But Snake Eyes looks great and Scarlet looks great. And it was really exciting at the time to see these characters look sort of like they were on a movie poster, in the same way that, 10, 15 years earlier, Alex Ross's paintings of Marvel characters in Marvels felt like stills from a movie that didn't exist. And we'd sort of never seen Marvel characters look so much like real people, and also like wearing real costumes, and also sort of the lighting that felt like reality because it was paint, and Ross's sense of color and light. This is definitely sort of a dark universe where everything's like lit by moonlight. It's like, Scarlet and Snake Eyes are fighting at night. Roadblock is in front of the memorial at night, right? Back on issue 1, there's no time of day, but that's, they're in a room or they're outside at night. But it still felt really new and different for G.I. Joe. And you have a little bit of this sort of real world stuff where there's more straps and gear, and Cobra Commander's costume looks a little bit less like, a toy action figure, and more like maybe what a person would actually wear if they were trying this. And I'll note that I think throughout the 6 issues, Baroness never has a Cobra insignia on her chest, and sort of as an overall, we're not talking about the covers for the rest of this sentence. The characters aren't really in costume. Some of them are, but a lot of them are just sort of wearing whatever they were wearing when a scene starts. Okay. But can you zoom in on the bottom right of this cover to issue number 1? This is one of the things that jumped out at me at the time. Cobra Commander looks great. Baroness looks great. Snake Eyes looks great. Scarlet looks great. I don't know who that other person is. It's probably, I'm not saying this to be a jerk. I can't tell who that other person is. It's probably Duke because of the hair, but it could be Beachhead. And Granov seems to be, it sort of seems like Granov ran out of time or ran out of attention and didn't want to render that face and that hair as carefully. And I get it, characters can be in shadow, but it's almost like on purpose to not reveal any costume. And this isn't like a Zartan or anything. This is very specifically a Joe, and I don't have any cues on sort of what they're wearing. So that's Granov on 1, 2, and 3. They're really different and pretty great. Although, they've got glasses. Now I understand. It's Mr. Anderson from The Matrix. Okay. And then we get to the cover to issue 4, and I have 3 things to say about this. One, it looks like a cover for the regular Devil's Due series. It no longer feels different, like a different universe, a different reality, a different artistic take, the way that these other 2 artists in this continuity so far do. This one feels regular. Good drawing, but regular. It's drawn by Tom Derenick. I should say it's penciled by Tom Derenick and then colored by Jeremy Roberts. And at the time, I don't think I had much of an impression of Tom Derenick, but over the next few years, he became a real utility player at DC, where he would draw some specific story arcs and fill-in issues. And then for a couple of years, he was like one of their go-to guys whenever any project was running behind. And there are lots of issues of like JSA and various like post-Infinite Crisis tie-ins where, you know, someone draws the issue and then Tom Derenick does like 4 pages at the end. And his stuff never wowed me, but it always seemed like he was given a raw deal because it's like, you have 2 days. I'm making this up. You have 2 days, draw 6 pages. It's like, well, even the best artist is not going to do great work. So here we have Firefly, who it's most clear on this cover. His costume is actually 2 colors. It's green and gray. It's not the all gray of the 1980s action figure. And that's a fun change. It is a little confusing because there's already someone in G.I. Joe continuity, this G.I. Joe continuity, a good guy who covers his face with that exact kind of mask, ski mask, and who wears that same kind of sweater with the vertical piping or ribbing that's green. It's Beachhead. And okay, and then lastly, on this cover, I think, oh, Firefly's a black guy. And way back in the Cobra special, I don't know if I mentioned this in the episode when you and I reviewed it, but when he shows up in that special and he meets Cobra Commander in like the parking garage, the coloring on him is a little unclear, and you have just a little bit of his skin around his eyes because he's always wearing gloves and clothes. But I feel like they actually hadn't made up their mind, or they'd made up their mind and they didn't always tell the colorists. And I got an example in one of these issues. Okay, so that's the cover. So it's please.
And I don't necessarily know that his skin color is particularly clear here, just because of like the, you know, the intensity of the lighting and the treatment, etc. That could be interesting lighting rather than necessarily a different skin tone. And I think this cover's got a couple of legacies to it, because Firefly as a figure from Mezco is definitely kind of leaning into that look, particularly the sort of slight insanity in the eye, or intensity in the eyes, and the scowling eye in that cover, and then in the classified Cobra Island figure for Firefly, you're getting that same sort of intense scowl from, it's less obvious maybe in this picture, but there's a definite sort of eyebrow cocking there. And in both of these figures as well, the other obvious connection is that they both have that sort of infrared goggles on the top of his head as well. Right. So I think this look definitely had created a little bit of inspiration for how Firefly is sort of seen down the line. And in G.I. Joe Retaliation, you and I have seen a very nice photo of that costume, because wasn't that for sale in the auction? It's like snakeskin textured. It's greenish but also grayish. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and that feels actually like it looks back to this reloaded costume. As a comparison, folks, if you're thinking, well, Firefly's always been kind of crazy. No, in the 1980s toy package art painted by Hector Garrido, he seems like a smooth operator as he's like sneaking away. I didn't actually describe the cover. I just said who was in it. It's Firefly leaning forward, eyes bugging out at you, holding a lit match with a big fire behind him. No background, no objects, just a big fire. And we see him from like waist up, and he's a big guy. He's got muscles. So that's the cover to 4, and then we get to the cover to 5, and this is, to me now, really symbolic of where this series is starting to have problems. I like this drawing. This doesn't feel like a cover. This feels like an interior page. This feels like maybe a splash page, or maybe just a good panel. It's a good drawing. It's penciled by Javier Salters. Good poses. It's interesting. I don't like the colors at all. They're crazy and too much. But like, it's probably Duke in the front. I can't tell what costume he's wearing. That's Doc. She's wearing like a dress and then has a flower in her hair, and then Roadblock has a lei, like flowers around his neck.
like you'd get when you step off a plane in Hawaii. And I note that this issue takes place in Hawaii, but there's nothing about this cover, these three Joes who are firing weapons. There's nothing about this cover in terms of props or location that says Hawaii. It's not like I see little bits of like, oh, they're on the deck of a cruise ship, or, oh, they're at the beach and there's a bit of a hotel and some like pool chairs behind them, or a palm tree. It's just three Joes with no background and they're wearing weird costumes.
Yeah, I thought the girl was actually meant to be Scarlet. Because I think Doc would only use her strange weaponry, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily look much like Scarlet or much like Doc, to be honest. But
you're saying that Doc doesn't really use weapons in this story, right? And here Doc is whoever this is, this woman seems to be holding two Uzis.
Yeah, I think it's meant to be Scarlet, but it just doesn't look like her. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, the colors on that skin and that hair to me definitely say Doc and not Scarlet. And then the cover to 6, I definitely did not read this issue when it came out. Excuse me. It's all in blue tones. Stalker is in the front as if he's tied up in a chair, sweating, eye closed, from like a black eye, swollen, lip bloodied, wearing a tank top. So it feels like an interrogation scene, although I don't see a chair. I don't actually see that his hands are bound. It's just the way that he's hunched over. That's the implication. The Baroness is behind him, smirking, holding a pistol. Up above past her is an open window, rectangular hole in a building with some blue light coming in, and Snake Eyes is crouched as if he's going to jump in. His sword is about to be drawn as if he's going to, I don't know, slash Baroness and save his teammate. And this is a little bit of a better cover than the previous issue. But again, and I like Javier Salters, and I always liked his he did covers for Ghost Rider when he was drawing the first year of Ghost Rider back in 1990, 1991 at Marvel. But this scene doesn't happen in the issue, and the composition feels a little strange because that light behind the Baroness is so prominent. It does a nice job of framing her so her black hair isn't against a black wall, but the cover seems to be about like 4 things, like Stalker and Baroness and Snake Eyes and that blue light behind Baroness. So do you have anything to say about these? Oh, okay. So you can have the interior artist draw the covers. Absolutely. In fact, I believe that's happening right now on a monthly G.I. Joe comic book in the Underground universe published by Skybound. And they're great and they're exciting. You don't need a Adam Hughes or like Brian Boland, like fancy artists to do covers for your book. For deadline purposes, it can be really nice if your interior artist isn't also doing covers. But your cover artist has to have a lot of oomph in poses and in design, and the covers can't draw attention to the fact that they're not as exciting as other covers. And the minute you have a really exciting artist doing what seems to be the full cover run for a book, and then after 2 issues or 3 issues they're not, it feels like a big downgrade. It feels like, oh, what's wrong with the book? What's happening? Mark, do you have any reactions or anything you want to say about these covers?
I was just going to add that there were some variants, or mostly just second prints, which were primarily just using interior panels from the book and having those as the cover. So generally not necessarily such exciting covers because they were just pulling it as basically interior art. Should we move on to a plot breakdown?
Yeah.
So we're covering 6 issues here, so quite a lot to cover, and I will gloss over a few details.
Plot breakdown.
Cobra, led by Major Blood, has stolen the Black Dragon 6 warplane. from the top secret Mount Silver base. The Joes capture him before the mysterious Snake Eyes rescues them from a missile attack. Blood escapes somehow, while Snake Eyes sort of joins the team. Cobra Commander makes a television address and threatens to take the heart of the nation. Cobra then steals the Constitution for some reason, placing it in the body armor of one of the Cobras. In the alleys of DC, the Joes fight a team of Street Vipers. Roadblock follows one back to Destro at the Lincoln Memorial. Roadblock wipes out all of the Cobras, rescues the Constitution, and lets Destro go for some reason. General Cross, the general that Hawk previously got generally cross, has been corrupted by Cobra. He captures Hawk and the Joes and locks them up. Firefly takes over a Saudi Arabian oil field, and a mysterious man in sunglasses and a trench coat gets the Joes out of jail. He sends Rock and Roll on a solo mission against Firefly for some reason, and finds him. And Rock and Roll finds Firefly in his tent and takes him down very easily. Snake Eyes has followed him, and in the Saudi desert, Storm Shadow tries to convince Snake Eyes to join Cobra again, and captures him. In the Hawaii, the remaining Joes are sent on some training ahead of attending a military symposium. When Cobra attack, the Joe team splits up to tackle the Cobra invasion, and mayhem commences. So quite a lot happens. And before we get too far in, I think I want to do one of these just so we don't sour the tone of this show too early. I'll say something nice.
Okay, I'll say something nice. When Javier Saltaires seems to have enough time to draw pages, his art is great. The opening pages of issue 2, which he pencils entirely himself. He's not sharing pencil duties with anyone. Where President Bush is in the Situation Room or whatever this table is in the White House, and then the Joes are having a discussion at their base in Montgomery County. Hey, I was born in Montgomery County. Actually, that's not true. I was born in DC, but hey, I grew up in Montgomery County. I really, when you can see when Saltaires is sort of putting all the lines in for people's, cheekbones and their hair, and then Andrew Pepoy is like giving it a really sort of strong ink finish, separate from colors, separate from other pages where Saltaires doesn't seem to have enough as much time. It's a really sharp-looking book, and Saltaires' storytelling in these pages where he's doing his best work is great.
Okay, a very good say something nice. I think my say something nice is I think that particularly for these early issues, the covers really gave it a sheen of it being like a what's the right word? Like a premium product, and making it feel like it was something special. So I think with the covers and the sort of the launch pad of Cobra Reborn, I think there was a lot of goodwill sort of going, being brought into these issues, sort of as a reader wanting them to succeed. And I sort of appreciated the endeavor of trying to do something brand new with G.I. Joe, because I guess probably at this stage, this is the first time that we've had a significant foray in G.I. Joe American, media, in American comics rather, outside of that main kind of Harmer continuity. Because after all, you had 155 issues of A Real American Hero, and then Devil's Due relaunching with a continuation of that same continuity. So this was an opportunity to at least try and do something different to the main title. And what what we were used to seeing. So I appreciated the effort to try and do something different, and was definitely willing to give that a fair shake, particularly given it was running in parallel to, rather than replacing the other G.I. Joe continuity at the time.
I'll just want to say one last thing. I've been trying to put my finger on what Javier Salters's and Andrew Pepoy's art. Can you go back to that previous image? It's page 2 from issue 2, where the president is standing at a table, and then there's a panel of just him, and then he's talking with people. Penciling and the inking and the very aggressive coloring remind me of how Brent Anderson's artwork looks in Astro City, where he's inked by, is it Nyberg, and then colored by I don't know who, but like a studio that overcolors. Okay, so and then one last, I always do this stuff for context. One last bit of context: the page after the final page in each of these issues is the Devil's Due news page, and at the bottom it tells you what's coming out that month and the next month, or I can't tell, the next 2 months. And each of these months that Reloaded is running, there are 3 G.I. Joe comic books. Master and Apprentice is ending. There's the main Devil's Due G.I. Joe book. There's Reloaded. Is there a Transformers crossover some of these months? And then there's like a graphic novel collection for Frontline, or like by the time, issue 6 of Reloaded is out, I think the first graphic novel collection with Reborn. So there is a lot of G.I. Joe stuff happening. Okay. Now my broad take on this, my broad reaction is that it reminds me of what happened in 1986 at Marvel Comics with the New Universe. Now, I wasn't there and I wasn't reading comics in 86, but I've read, history books on Marvel and comics. And Marvel was gearing up for his 25th anniversary, right? If you're counting from the beginning of like Fantastic Four #1. I don't mean from like, Marvel Comics #1 in 1940. And Jim Shooter, vice president of the company and editor-in-chief, had this idea to start an entirely new imprint. And I don't think anyone was using that word. It was a new universe. It was a separate universe. It wasn't going to be in the regular Marvel continuity. It was going to be all new characters. And there was this interesting hook where it would progress in real time, which is completely separate from this analogy. And Marvel was going to spend a lot of money getting exciting writers and artists to do a whole rollout of these monthly books. And higher up than Jim Shooter, Marvel's parent company, Cadence, wanted to sell Marvel and wanted to make it look more attractive. And so budgets were cut. And so suddenly Shooter had almost no money to pay people to write and draw all these exciting new comics that were being developed. And so a bunch of staff editors were going to now write them. And then a bunch of like new talent were going to write and draw them. And so the New Universe, it had been promoted for months and months and months with teasers. And then, the New Universe is here, and it's all these new #1s over the course of a few months. And at the very beginning, it's kneecapped because the talent doing it is just not that exciting. And all the books are like good or okay. And it faltered, and it lasted like 2 years, depending on how you count. Like some of the books were canceled early. There's sort of a second wave. Shooter leaves the company, is let go. Okay, so that's not what happened here, but something is definitely happening because Devil's Due is really excited about this new G.I. Joe continuity, which you can get in from the ground floor with this special. And they're starting with the bad guys, right? And then this other special. And even within those 2 specials, there's several artists. And then in issue #1 of Reloaded, right? Not off to a good start. There are 2 pencilers, right? And then issue 2, the guy who launches the book isn't around, right? Eddie Barrows is gone. And then issue 3, there are 3 pencilers. Although I think what's happening is I think in issue 3, Salters is doing layouts and Lim is doing pencils. No, I guess in 3, Salters does the beginning. Anyway, and then this artist whose name I'm not familiar with, Jason Millett, I think he might be assisting. I think he might be doing backgrounds, because all the Ron Lim pages, they just look like Ron Lim faces and bodies.
Yeah, I think I've seen a credit elsewhere that says he's doing like backgrounds or something.
Okay, and I don't know if this is an issue with budget, if this is an issue with, I'd have to put on my thinking cap. It's like, well, what's happening to the comics industry in 2004? Devils Due. They're now 3 years into their regular G.I. Joe book, and they've had to refresh it with a new writer, and they've launched some miniseries, so the whole Reloaded continuity, it feels like either Hasbro changed its mind, or Devils Due suddenly had a problem, or a bunch of the talent, like someone got sick, or someone had a death in the family, or multiple people had these kinds of scheduling issues, editorial, writer, artist, I don't know. And suddenly, like, to keep the book on schedule, they've got to throw a bunch of people at it. And at the same time, and Mark, you can help me sort of figure this out, how to phrase it as we get through the rest of this episode. I feel like from the very beginning, John Ney Reiber is not working with the concept in a way that makes for a satisfying story. And it might be like editorial interference. It might be too much freedom, and the editors weren't saying like, oh, this isn't working, try this other thing, like you should rewrite this scene or rewrite the script. But from the very beginning, it's not just that the art is choppy, it's that the story is sort of not working immediately. Mark?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination of both, maybe the art not being quite as strong as maybe you'd hope, but also maybe just the direction of the overall plot not quite gelling. My guess is that in terms of the artist, that maybe they had a bit of a monkey, what do you call it, a wrench in the works, kind of. Possibly they had someone that they were expecting to be doing the art, and maybe maybe they were headhunted onto another title. I have a feeling that they maybe talked about sort of Joe Bennett as being potentially the one of the main artists who did some of the work on the Joe book. But yeah, certainly I think in one interview with Blaylock, they were talking about the Reborn issues, and they were saying that they'll spin off into a Reloaded ongoing, and they was talking about who would be doing the Reborn issues, and I think they might have said the ongoing artist will be announced, and I suspect that might be playing that like, we'll have some really cool, but we can't tell you yet, and it might have been, or the person that we were hoping was going to do it isn't going to do it anymore, so we're not actually sure who's going to do it now. Something along those lines. But I think my top down thought is that kind of slightly misses the mark, that maybe the kind of the exciting, modern, radically different reinvention, really sort of grounded aspects didn't quite work, and maybe the writer just wasn't quite as strong as he needed to be, and the art wasn't as exciting as it needed to be. And in terms of the G.I. Joe-ness of it, for me, I was sort of noticing two things, like, the characters sort of generally, not necessarily always on model. They're sort of looking a bit different from page to page at times, and at times looking very generic, like they're in Hawaii training. They're just all in, cargo pants and a white t-shirt, looking incredibly generic. And when they're on their missions, again, often not looking as cool as their G.I. Joe kind of togs could be. And similarly with Cobra, it's all very pared back, and it's different but less exciting. And then I think they're just trying to be modern and radical and leaning into that Matrix bit, and it's sort of exemplified for me by the number of characters wearing sunglasses, but
very specific sunglasses, like those very narrow, I guess they're Oakleys,
narrow pointy Matrix Oakley type.
And let's not forget, when does, maybe by the time I finish the sentence you can tell me, the Matrix is released in 97, 98, probably 98. And the sequels come a couple years later. But I remember when this comic book came out, it felt like, oh, they're taking that word from the Matrix sequel and using it as their own. And it's not desperate, but like, no, G.I. Joe's cool enough. It should be able to come up with its own word. G.I. Joe Deluxe or Super G.I. Joe or something.
Matrix Reloaded is 2003, and yeah, I think it's a heavy word which they've taken to heart with particularly the design of Storm Shadow and his sunglasses. And
you make a point about both how characters look in terms of drawing continuity, but also costumes, Okay. It's funny that sometimes I take for granted how Larry Hama's G.I. Joe characters are and how they act. And I know they're really different from each other in his mind. And I don't always see it. I think sometimes they're all just like experts doing the best job. And it's not like one is super loyal and the other is super emotional. And one is like, it's like the different astrological signs, it's like, well, this one feels betrayed and this one is argumentative. It's like, no, they're all just like excellent and awesome. But what I have definitely gotten used to in G.I. Joe comics is a certain flavor of characterization. And can you pull up an image that I sent you? It is from issue 6, panel. Wait, sorry, I just got it wrong. Going through my issue 2, page 15. Okay, so the Joes are in 2 cars and they're driving. And by the way, I found it a little confusing that they're 2 different cars. Like, I get it; it's different people are driving the cars in the passenger seat or in the back. But I needed more like visual cues to very clearly differentiate that it was one set of Joes in one vehicle and the other set of Joes in another vehicle. And this kind of thing happens a couple times in these 6 issues.
Yeah, I'll find the page, because it was something that I noticed as well. I think you get just a teeny tiny kind of prompt that there are two vehicles. And I think it's just this page here. At the top of the page, there's a sort of a car, and then behind it, it's a van, and you're meant to intuit from that I don't know.
Half the team are in one and half the team are the other. But go back. What it actually looks like is they're all in the main car, and that main car is just passing a van, and the van is not important. Okay. So if you can go to the slide. All right. So Duke's or rock and rolls in the back seat. What's the deal with these Cobras? What's their target? Doc says, "You're going to share with the class, Duke? We might stand a chance of stopping the bad guys if we knew what we were stopping them from. What is the heart of the nation thing?" And then Hawk says, "Knuckleheads, we're talking about the United States of America. How many hearts do you think she's got?" And then Duke says, "You're not thinking. Come on. This country has only one heart, the same heart it's had from the beginning." And I thought, everyone is so upset with each other. There's so much attitude. And it reminds me of the Ultimates, the Mark Millar comic from 2000, where like all the Avengers are assholes. And that was really cool, because like, if you want to read the Avengers comic where they're old fashioned, they all get along, go read the Avengers. And this kind of thing happens a few times in this issue and in this whole 6 issues. And I understand that they're being stressed, that Cobra's winning, that they're on their back heel, that they don't know each other, and that they've all been sort of thrown together in this really unusual, impromptu you're on a team now, you've got code names, your identities, your lives are over, and maybe they don't trust each other, or maybe they don't trust Hawk, but they're just being so angry and obnoxious to each other. And it happens a couple times. And I thought, oh, this doesn't feel like G.I. Joe to me. And it certainly is more, finger quotes, interesting than reading, an issue, 20 issues, 100 issues in a row of Hama's G.I. Joe, where Joes never argue with each other. But there's certainly less drama if they don't argue with each other. But G.I. Joe, Hama's G.I. Joe is about like supporting the team and getting the mission done. And I realized as I was reading these 6 issues, either John Ney Reiber is getting it wrong, or John Ney Reiber's take on G.I. Joe just doesn't fit with me.
Yeah, I think so. This sequence was just strange as well, because it feels like they're having the same conversation in one car, but they're in 2 different cars, and just having a very, very similar conversation, I think. I
think it's meant to be like in film where you're doing parallel cutting, where they are having the same conversation at the same time, and you show half of one and half the other, and you're like, oh, they're both having the full same conversation.
Yeah, they're in 2 different cars having the same conversation. Sort of, they're both coming to the same conclusion that Hawk and Duke are in. Hawk is driving one car, Duke is driving another car, and they're arguing with their teammates in their respective cars, but they're both kind of on the same tracks, coming to the same conclusion. I think the MacGuffin for me was a bit frustrating. So we had G.I. Joe Reborn, and then also the first couple of issues of G.I. Joe Reloaded were all about this devastating MacGuffin drone device at Mount Silver that they were having to, that Cobra was trying to capture, and I think they captured it. I think Cobra did win the MacGuffin deadly device, but then it never gets brought up again. Seemingly, they just sort of just forget about it and move on to the next thing, and then Cobra, after kind of trying to kind of steep Cobra Commander in a bit more of a real world, real threat kind of role, have immediately sort of zigzag to him being like a bit more of a cartoon villain of I'm going to steal the heart of America, the Constitution. If I own this piece of paper, the nation will surely crumble and democracy will collapse. I didn't buy that. I thought it was just a bit silly, and it was just the stakes sort of were basically 2 small teams, a Joe team of probably just a bit fewer than 10 people, and Cobra just a bit fewer than 10 people, and it's meant to have the whole of American democracy on the line. Yeah, didn't work for me.
This is not an image that I scanned, so I'm just gonna unless you've got this page in your slideshow. So I'm gonna hold this up. This is the actual page in issue 2. This is near the end of issue 2, where you see a like light gray thing that's curved. Oh yeah, thank you. Good, that's it. You see a light gray thing that's curved, and it's on a shiny dark gray thing that's curved. And the caption says, "The National Archives, Washington, D.C., the heart of the nation, the Constitution." And it's really subtle, but the inking on the curved light gray thing, it's like, oh, that must be paper, because that's not how you ink like metal or a fabric. That's how you ink like parchment. It's a little jagged. And then I sort of didn't know what was happening for a panel. And then this guy's, who I don't know who it is, it's like Zanzibar and clean shaven without an eye patch or whatever, is wearing this vest, and he says, "Think it'll stop a bullet." And this is one of the representations to me of where this story doesn't work, because there's some really unclear visual storytelling. And some of this is that first panel. Oh, it's like a chest piece body armor that the Constitution like fits into. It's like you can open it up, put the Constitution in it, close it, and walk out with it. And you're wearing it, and it's bulletproof, I guess. Okay, that's fun. Couple things. One, that first panel, I can't tell what the armor is. It just looks like a weird curved thing. Two, that second panel, when there's three cobras, bad guys with sunglasses inside, and they've got like hats and hoods, and they're just sort of like looking sort of at the like fingers, which are holding the metal thing, which is the chest armor thing. That's like a wasted panel. I understand now what's happening. These three bad guys are seeing the leader put the chest piece up to his body or like close it. But Saltaires isn't quite up to the task here. And then when in the final panel, panel 4, this guy with the ponytail, and he's got a Cobra logo on his shoulder, and he's wearing the metal bulletproof vest. There's this
who may
reveal.
or may not be named, because the names they choose are so forgettable and sort of throwaway.
Yeah,
and it's not
yes,
it's not repeated with context. Yeah.
So throughout all these scenes where the Cobras are like running around Washington D.C. and like stopping the Joes and getting shot by the Joes, they've got like nicknames for each other, and it's not like Tallmax, Zaymot, Scrap Iron. It's like Snake Face and like Chrome Dome or something. It's like, is that Destro? Like, oh, it's like, or King Snake. Is that Cobra Commander, or is that like the leader of this little squad? And some of them just look like Major Blood because they've got, like berets or like mustaches. So I see this guy and I don't know if I'm supposed to be sort of wowed. It's like, well, he just got a third of a page and like a bright orange background with effect lines. And if it's a new character, someone should name him, or he should immediately do something awesome. If it's the first appearance of an established character, like, oh, in this continuity, Scrap Iron has a ponytail. Like, I need to know that from more costume cues. And again, someone should name him. And this kind of thing keeps happening. And so when Cobra Commander sends Storm Shadow to like fight Snake Eyes, when Major Blood does show up again in, I forget, issue 5 in Hawaii, it's like, okay. So the whole sort of, and then the fact that like the final pages of issue 3, Roadblock has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The final 6 pages, a full quarter of issue 3 is this like solo Roadblock scene where he's on his own and then he confronts Destro. And some of it's great. Some of the exchange between him and Destro is great. And between Destro and the like bad guys with Destro who are on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. But also it's like, I think John Ney Reiber decided, or an editor suggested, it's like, okay, zoom in on one character because we have all these group scenes. And then it happens again in the following issue when Rock and Roll goes on this solo mission around to the other side of the world. And I'm like, no, it's a team book. Like, so in yet another way, the approach doesn't find the mark of what G.I. Joe is. So
yeah, and the roadblock sequence, it sort of pushed on one of my buttons or sort of touched a nerve on one of the things around G.I. Joe, but comics or storytelling more generally, which is that quite often when you've got named characters and unnamed or less important troops, that the troops can be killed, slaughtered by the good guys with complete impunity, but then when you've got a named bad guy, there's this massive deference where they won't shoot them or kill them, and might even go as far as just letting them walk away. So Roadblock, as he's already demonstrated he's quite happy to just kill the bad guys. He's mowing them down with a high caliber machine gun, killing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys here, and then the actual leader, he just okay, see ya.
This is a good point. I just remembered the fifth out of 3 points that I wanted to make about that previous scene with the Constitution. Can I ask you to click back? When the guy puts the metal vest on.
Yep.
So they keep talking about the heart of the nation, and I enjoyed
it's not this issue. It's
yeah, thank you. And I enjoyed the puzzle. I like the scene where the president is talking to his emergency group or the cabinet, and they're trying to figure out what it is. I thought that was great. And when the Joes talk about trying to figure out what it is, except for the fact that they're all really pissy at each other, I thought that was great. And you don't know what it is until, an issue and a half later. Hey, everyone, notice when you finally see the Constitution, it's just a blank, shiny piece of paper. And either, like someone said to Javier Salters, no, don't draw "We the People" on it, because we're going to have the letterer do that, because that's like a lettering effect and it's going to be in perspective on a curve, or we need it to be a layer that we can turn off for like foreign translations. Although actually that's not a word balloon in English that you'd switch to Spanish. That's just still the Constitution that says "We the People" in English. So that really should be a part of the art. So either Salters forgot, someone told him not to, the letterer forgot, but this scene is really, it's like another reason why this scene is unclear. But B, in terms of seeing the Constitution, they keep talking about it, and it's the MacGuffin for 3 issues, and yet you only see it on the cover to the trade paperback. And I was trying to think of a comparison in all the episodes of the cartoon when Cobra Commander says what he's going to go steal or unveils what he's invented. Like, I've got a teleportation device, or we're going to go steal all the gold in Fort Knox, or the Joes are at the National Archives and they're worried that the Cobra is going to steal the Constitution. And in fact, they like move it by van. But you know what Cobra really steals? I think they steal printer plates for currency. I'm trying to remember. In all those examples, you see the thing. Like, you see the gold in Fort Knox, or you see the giant teleportation device. And I feel like, I don't think anyone actually went out of their way not to show us the Constitution, but I think everyone forgot to show us the Constitution. And I don't mean this one panel where they literally forgot to write "We the People" on the Constitution. I mean, like, there should be a panel, like half a page, where you walk into this fancy room and like, isn't the Constitution in like a block of glass or something? And you have all this, like neoclassical architecture around it, and like some famous paintings or other documents around it. It's like, no, that's a museum. So you have to draw the interior room of a museum a certain way. And Salters isn't given enough space in the plot, or doesn't give himself enough because he wants to make a really big panel for this guy at the end who is unimportant and gets blown up several pages later anyway. And so this is a sort of a half repeat of a point I already made, but with a new wrinkle, which is this story, these 6 issues, these 8 issues, too crowded. The Joes are going after too many things. They're sort of splitting up and like crisscrossing too many times in too many places. And then a point that you made, there are too many characters, particularly Cobra, but also kind of the Joes, where there's just a lot of them and you can't quite tell who they are. And the sort of magic of like stormtroopers in Star Wars is you just immediately know that they're bad guys. You should be a little bit worried about them, but they're probably fodder. And in all of G.I. Joe, whether it's the comic or the cartoon, with the basic blue Cobra soldier or the 1986 Cobra Viper, you have that same visual. And the minute that you make it a bunch of guys in like hoodies and like ball caps, and some of them are in gray and some of them are in green, but a bunch of them are in this like blue uniform that's a new take on the Cobra costume, they start to become individuals, and they're not just like fodder, but then they're treated like fodder. And again, I don't know sort of if I'm like rooting for any of them.
To your point as well, that sort of there's quite a few coloring mistakes and things like that sort of crop in. So like on this panel from issue number 2, you've got Beachhead there, and he's miscolored in blue rather than in green. which, you know, if he had been green, that would be a lot of green, because you've got Hawk in green, then you've got a green tank, Beachhead in green, and Rock and Roll behind him. You can tell it's Rock and Roll because he's wearing sunglasses. And yeah, this blue Beachhead sort of, you know, there's only one other character that looks like that who wears blue, which is Shipwreck, who doesn't appear in these particular issues. And similarly, there's a panel where Stalker is miscolored. He doesn't have a goatee. He's miscolored as a white guy, and you think, why is there a white guy with a beret there? Is Flint turning up already? It sort of takes you out, and even if you can sort of like read between the lines, figure out it's Stalker, it just sort of takes you out of the moment, because you're like squinting and frowning.
Can you pull up that slide I sent you, Reloaded for Firefly? So on the cover of issue 4, there's already this change, or and you know, folks, don't forget that in the IDW continuity, Firefly is black. It's really subtle in Hearts and Minds, but he is. Okay, so here, this is from, is it pages? It's 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. It's 2 pages that are facing each other in issue 4, and both of them are of Firefly. And here's a tiny thing that I'm going to just let go. And one of them, the vertical piping on his hood, is singular, and on the next, it's double. But what's really throwing me off here is that in one of them, he's definitely a white guy, and the other one, he's definitely a black guy. And both of them have blue eyes, and
one of them's got eyes cut out, and one of them is a full.
Oh, right. Jeez. Yeah, I'm so distracted by 1.5 mistakes that I forgot the whole other mistake. And now I want to point out 1 or 2 storytelling bits. So can you pull up the slide Reloaded 3, page 6? Okay. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. I bumped into my wife yesterday at a cafe. She knew I was heading there, and she was out for errands, and she thought it'd be fun to be there when I got there. And we had this funny moment, like, hey, I know you. And sometimes I will hand her a comic and I'll say, hey, what's happening on this page? And sometimes I'll tell her all about the wonderful things that are happening in G.I. Joe, or the heartbreaking things that are happening in G.I. Joe or Batman or X-Men or some graphic novel I'm reading. So I handed her this and I said, what's happening in this page? And so this is Reloaded issue 3. This is most of page 6. So we're in an alley and the camera's low. We're looking past Beachhead, who just got shot. I think it's 3 times, and he heals really fast, by the way. Like when they're in jail and then in Hawaii, like a half a day later, and he's like making them do push-ups. He seems fine. So Doc is running at us, and she has a pistol in her right hand, and she's just running with a clenched fist. That is her left hand. And then in the next panel, she's like swung her body, and from context, it's like, oh, I guess she's throwing something. And then the next panel, we see a reaction shot of 3 bad guys in the alley, reverse angle, 5 feet away, 10 feet away, 20 feet away. And they're holding their arms up to their faces. And there's this really bright white, and the colorists have made it like white and yellow. And there's a crackoom. And I said to my wife, what's happening? And she said, oh, well, Doc throws her pistol, and I guess it like blows up and it's really bright. And it's like, okay, so there are 2 problems here, actually. One, there's a continuity error where she's holding her pistol in her right hand and nothing in her left hand. And she swings with her right hand, and the like flashbang grenade that we never see, and Javier Salters does not establish it. And then I thought, maybe it's in her left hand in the first panel, but they like colored it wrong. Maybe it's not a fist. Maybe it's like her fingers wrapped around something, the way that you hold an apple. I don't know. But I'm sorry, this sucks. And I know I'm cranky, and it's like, oh, look at me. We're being teleported back 150 episodes to when we were doing a lot of Devil's Due. And I was like, this isn't clear. I don't like this coloring. Okay. And I wanted to point this out, and I didn't have time to scan the bottom half of the page. And Mark, you had it at the ready. Can you go to the bottom half of that page? The one that I just showed. Okay. So I don't know if it's the same three guys who we just saw like get illuminated by, I guess, the flashbang grenade, but one of them is wearing a hoodie and he's leaning like against a brick wall and he's got an Uzi and his hoodie is blue. And then the next panel, his hoodie is like kind of like holographic, kind of glowing, and it's now got like an orangey brick pattern on it. And I thought, oh, I guess that's Zartan because he can blend in with his surroundings or something. But also there's this weird thing happening where Salters and Pep-Boy have done a copy and paste on the panel. So it's not even like it's a moment later and he's like putting his arm down, or he's like turning his head and saying to the other guy, like, we got to get out of here, or let me turn on my hologram, or I'm definitely Zartan. I don't know. But like, I find it distracting when artists do a copy and paste. It's like, no, like draw like one thing a little bit different, like white out his hand and have his like, have his like finger off of the trigger or something. Otherwise it seems like not even like a moment later, but sort of the same moment. So anyway, Mark, who is this and what's happening?
It might be a named character. I'm not entirely sure. I think they call this group the Street Vipers, but then they also talk about being in the alleys of DC as well. So it's like the alley people in the streets. Very, very close to being an alley viper. I think they've got a technology that's allowing their hoodies to blend into the background.
How do you know that?
Well,
have they said so?
I think there's a one dialogue balloon that sort of hints at something, but doesn't spell it out later on. And I think what they're doing in this particular panel is having a bit of fun. Alley Viper, the Alley Viper character is so bizarre with their orange and blue camo that it makes no sense. And it looks like they're having fun with it, that they're having this guy blend into the orange kind of brickwork. And that camo is making him look like he's got an Alley Viper pattern.
Like the 1989 action figure that's bright orange with blue camo.
Yeah, I think they're putting an Easter egg in there and having a bit of fun with it. But against the context of everything else, that this is one small panel where he does this and never does it again, and they never explain it. And you don't know who those characters are against the context of this flash bomb that happened earlier on the previous panel. Or on the next panel, if you turn over the page, where you've got three almost identical baddies who aren't in costumes, with another kind of flash bomb thing, which explodes like it's a massive incendiary grenade. But I think they say that which gassed us. So you're immediately on to the next snafu in terms of storytelling and colouring. But it's interesting, but it's a one unexplained panel that doesn't necessarily make any sense.
I've got another panel I'm going to ask you to pull up, and then I'll stop talking about unclear storytelling. This one is Reloaded to page 12. And
is this one? Is this one of the ones that you pre-prepared for me?
Yes. It starts with the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this isn't like I'm so upset. This is like, oh, this is a fascinating mistake. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. The first one we're inside. Excuse me, 5 panels. The first one we're inside looking out a window, or we're seeing like the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia framed by some either window panes or towers, but it's outside. And in the distance, in the sky, there's this orange circle, which at first I thought was the moon. And then I thought, that's pretty bright for the moon, so it's not the moon. And then in the next panel, it's really skinny. It's a sliver of a panel. There's a plane or a drone, and I think it might be the thing you were talking about that was like stolen from the mountain in the special that like was sort of an issue 1. I sort of lost my thread on that. But you see this like plane or drone thing heading down, and then there's another caption that says the Constitution Center. But under that caption that says the Constitution Center, there's like a bright light, and I can't tell what it is, if it's like a street light or like headlights or a fire. But it's competing. It's like the same orange and intensity. Let's just ignore that one.
I think that one is meant to be a street light. It's got
Okay.
like a vertical pole thing. But
Okay,
yeah,
so-
like you say, it's very, very similar lights to the one in the that they're
in the
trying to
first
bring
panel. Okay.
attention to. Yeah.
So I'm going to actually ignore the one in the second panel because I think that's like a fun, small coloring mistake. And then in the third panel, we're inside some building, I guess the Constitution Center, which has a curved window front. And we see like a giant American flag hanging. And out through the window, looking up at it, we see a bright orange circle. And there's a tiny line behind it that's a curl, as if it's like coming toward us. And I thought, oh, that's a missile. That's not the moon. It's something that's coming toward us. Maybe it's the drone or the like plane from the previous panel. And then the next panel, panel 4, that's one that has all the orange and red and says re. I actually don't know what that sound effect is. I think it's like an alarm because the building is on fire or the windows are broken. But anyway, in this next panel, it's the same angle as the previous one, except now the windows are, I think, shattered and all this like red laser beams or fire is coming through it. And the American flag is like shaking with all the impact. And then there's another slim panel, and the Baroness is now talking, and she says, "The Constitution Center is ours for the moment. Quickly, let's redecorate this entire shrine." And then behind her, up in the sky, is the moon again. And it's like this weird red-orange, like glowing hot flame circle. But it's got a line behind it, as if it's like going up. And then I thought, wait, is that the moon or the flare? Oh, it's a flare. Like, okay, it's not the drone. It's now an entirely different thing. And then in the next panel, the camera pulls back and we see that Baroness is talking to a bunch of people. And there's like, she's standing in a giant doorway with broken glass. So I think they've stepped into the Constitution Center, and she continues, like, place those ridiculous statues of the founding fathers somewhere more functional. And this is a fun bit, which was not entirely clear, where they like move statues so that when like the Joes, the guards come in, they like shoot them because they think they're like the bad guys. It's like, okay. But anyway, so this is, I'm not like aggravated by this. I'm totally fascinated by this mistake, because the colorists, in like either not having access to the script and just coloring, or the editor in not like double checking, or in the colorists not understanding the script, whatever it was, you have like 2 or 3 or 4 round circular lights that are all up. One's in the sky, one's above the ground, one's definitely moving in the sky, and one's definitely moving in the sky in a different way. But like one of them, I think, is the moon or the drone. Another one is, I think, the drone. But then after the explosion, it's not the drone, it's a flare. But then in this final panel, Mark, what's behind the Baroness? This like very bright orange yellow light, which sort of looks like motorcycle headlight, but it's too high. So I think that's the flare that's now like 20 feet off the ground. So this is to say that the artist would want to make these objects different from each other, and the colorists need to really track them and make them different from each other, because like the flare should be a different color. And I don't know why the drone in panel 3 is like glowing orange when in panel 2, it looks like a small black metallic airplane. So I found this page very confusing, but funny confusing. Like, what a fascinating series of mistakes.
I didn't think as much about this page initially, but I think most of that light is meant to be the same thing. So panel 2 is definitely just a coloring mistake, placing too much emphasis on a street light.
Okay.
So the first one, I think, is the unmanned drone, the big MacGuffin device from issue 1, flying in from the distance. Panel 3 is the same drone sort of arcing in to visibility in the window. Then it opens up with like a kind of a Gatling gun type thing, and it's giving that sort of minigun kind of
Wait,
did it
shooting?
shoot? Did it shoot?
Did it shoot?
Shooting out the windows.
Did they shoot?
I think that's the drone shooting out the windows.
Did we know that the drone could? I thought drones just like blew up. Did they have machine guns? All right, keep going.
I don't know.
And
maybe.
then what's
and then I think it's done that bit, sort of got closest to the window and blown out the windows, and then it's shooting up because it doesn't need to be so close anymore. So
it
got
flies.
a line.
It flies away.
Yeah, and then it's sort of hovering in the air behind, illuminating the Baroness, who, by the way, here isn't wearing any glasses, despite everyone else in the book wearing sunglasses.
Right. Okay, so it's not a flare. I thought that like someone shot a flare to be like, okay, the Baroness and her team are in the Constitution Center. But now that you explained it, I think you're right. It's not. It's a drone the whole time. It's not a drone and then also a flare. Okay. Can you pull up another slide that I sent you? This one is Reloaded 6, page 14, detail. I'm jumping to issue 6. This panel's like all by itself. So even though we're okay. So you see an inset panel, a round inset panel, like a panel on top of another panel, but it's small. And there's a hand holding some kind of box with like 3 green buttons or lights on it. And I don't know where it is, but then I realized in the larger panel, the guy who's seated, his hand has a circle around it and he's holding a thing. And that is a great device. I'm not criticizing it. That's what you do here, right? You can call that out by repeating that circle. You could even like have an arrow. Okay. And so there's someone who's standing and he's pumping his fist in the air and he says, yes, wild man's fragged out, Carr, you're up. And then the guy who's seated says, sorry, Lance, just remembered, got to check on something. And then the first guy says, wuss, how about you, Hool? Got some, where'd it go? Oh, yeah, okay. And Mark has just added a line connecting the big inset panel with the tiny like inset detail. Okay, and that you can do that. That's not breaking the rules. That's a gutter. By all means, connect panels. Okay. The guy standing in the back with his fist up. Wuss. How about you, Hool? Got some hot smoking railgun death waiting for you right here. And then the guy who's like getting out of his seat, who's got his back to us, says, nah, I'm beat. Think I'm going to hit the sack. And I do know what's going on here. But for a second, I thought, what is going on here? And Mark, I bet you know, but can you tell that the word balloons are completely covering a video game?
Now that it's zoomed in and a great amount of attention is being paid to it, yes.
Okay. Now,
until this point, I hadn't noticed that particularly. No. Okay.
Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, Tim's doing his nitpicking again, it's like, yes. What the guy's talking about, because he says, how about you, Hool? Got some hot smoking railgun death waiting for you right here. It's like, oh, is he threatening his friend? Is he going to shoot him? Like, no. They're in the rec room, the cafeteria. I think there's like a vending machine or like just like a refrigerated area with a bunch of like pre-packed trays of food. Like we recognize those seats, we recognize those tables, we recognize those like white cups. But there's a video game in like a cabinets, coin operated video game in the background. And the colorists have gone to some attempt to comp in perspective, some tiny like screen cap, I can't tell what it is, of some, I think, actual video game. Maybe it's Area 51 or something. And the fact that you can't see the video game, you can kind of make out the joystick and the 2 buttons on the screen. It's like kind of a weird like 2-player one that looks like it's sort of the same thing back to back. That's not how they make video games. This is not a big deal, but I point this out because one of the things that I've been dealing with in editing a 4-issue miniseries for Boom is the occasional movement of a word balloon. So Janice Chang, who has lettered the center holds, did a great job. But sometimes when you're reading and rereading, you realize like, oh, I just want to make it much clearer that like this person is speaking first. Or, okay, well, the artist drew these couple of panels in sort of an unusual arrangement. And I think if you read it a little casually, you'll read the word balloons in the wrong angle. So can we like move this word balloon and like make the pointer really obvious at this one person, this kind of thing. And sometimes it's an issue of the artist doesn't leave the letterer any space. And sometimes it's an issue of the writer has too much dialogue, even for a big panel, and the artist isn't going to be able to leave space for the letterer. And sometimes I think it's sort of everything is falling apart. That because there is a bunch of like unimportant negative space over on the left, on the bottom, below that large circle. But you probably wouldn't put word balloons there because then you'd like cover up the guy. So I found this funny as this like this is no-win situation, and this whole panel has to be rethought. There needs to be different dialogue, a different layout, maybe not the giant inset panel on the left, or you just like take out the video game or the reference to it, so you have one less word balloon, and it's like, wuss, how about you, Hool? Staying for dessert? Just like make it much shorter, and then the word balloon can be a lot smaller, and it's like, oh, there's a video game behind them. And then I think I have, can I do one more panel? Here's a compliment. Can you pull up Reloaded 6, page 2? And then I'll go back to a not compliment. This happens 2 or 3 times. Okay, so we're in Hawaii. The Joes all have white t-shirts and tank tops, and they've been doing push-ups. And Stalker sees in the distance a bunch of boats, although I'm confused because the Joes don't see it, but then they've got binoculars. And anyway, Duke says, roadblock, Doc, Scarlet, we're hot socks back to the hotel. We'll get an alert out to the base and acquire some firepower. If we can't find any functional demos at the symposium, we can at least snag small arms from their security. Then we'll commandeer a vehicle, burn highway out to the hot zone, and skin ourselves some sea snakes. And I thought, cool and well thought out. Like, John Ney Reiber created a problem for himself that the Joes don't have weapons because they're doing training, and then they're going to get 3 days vacation on Hawaii. But he also created an opportunity, and Cobra shows up, so the Joes are going to have to stop them. But he also created a solution, which is that the Joes are on Hawaii to visit this futuristic military tech weapons convention symposium. And in the previous issue, or a few pages earlier, I think Roadblock and Stalker are like, oh boy, we get to like look at cool new weapons and maybe get some for this team that we're building. And so this bit of dialogue here, it reminds me a little bit of what Larry Hama would do, where the Joes are talking about their gear and they're talking about what they're going to do. And it's very much about the like militariness of it, or the like A to B to C of like geography or process in the story. It's like, you go upstairs and turn off the vent because Cobra has put a gas in the pit. I'll go downstairs and find gas for the vamp because it's out of gas, right? And I got to and again, it happens 1 or 2 other times where I thought, okay, John Ney Reiber is like doing some good thinking about sort of how this team works and like maybe what a G.I. Joe story wants or what a G.I. Joe reader wants. So I like this. I like this a lot.
Talking about tech and gear, I'll flick back to issue number 2, where
this was one of the other ones. This was very good. All right, same wavelength.
All right. Did you have a slide for this one?
No, but I okay. Didn't have time, and I wanted to find this one.
So Roadblock is admiring this. They're opening some crates and looking at gear, and Roadblock is admiring this new heavy machine gun that he's got. And it's Duke says, quit eyeballing that XM312 if you're too shy to use it, Roadblock. Pick up your old juice. We're on the clock. And this weapon that he's got is this experimental weapon, the XM312, which was kind of designed as the replacement to the Browning machine gun that Roadblock is best known for having, and is the inspiration for the weapon that Tom Riley has given him in the pages of G.I. Joe from Skybound as his new Energon universe version of Roadblock's gun instead. I think it's not the same weapon actually that's on the front cover to number 3, but I think he does play with it a little bit. So I thought that was an interesting bit of synchronicity about a reinvention of G.I. Joe and Roadblock being given basically this same gun in both of these two continuities.
Earlier at the beginning, Say Something Nice, and I said some of Javier Saltares' art is really, really nice. His faces and his textures and his details. This first panel, I don't like the coloring, but I like that we can see their space, and Roadblock's opening great, and they've all got sort of different poses and they're different sizes. Roadblock is big, Duke is close. And then look at Roadblock's expression on panels 2 and 3, and look at the sort of snarky Hawk expression on panel 2. And then on the final panel, when we check back in with Snake Eyes, excuse me, sir, but what about him? We can't just leave him here. No, we can't, Snake Eyes. And the camera cuts into the other room past Snake Eyes, looking back past him to them. Snake Eyes is sitting cross-legged and he's sharpening his sword. And I believe on the next panel, you actually see the sharpening stone. So where I'm nitpicking like, oh, we don't see the grenade. Where'd the gun go? What's in her hands? Like, no. He's keeping track of it. But there's just a nice bit of moving the camera around, body language, attitude. And it's a real bummer because Saltares can do some really great work and Andrew Pepoy can do some really great work. And on these 2 pages, they do. But elsewhere in this run, they are unable to. And I think I said this in our G.I. Joe Reborn episode. Saltares does show up to draw some later IDW G.I. Joe comics. Is it season 3? I think it's season 3. I get the seasons mixed up because seasons 4 and 5 involve Transformers. I can't remember. Or season 4 is the Catherine Travers when Steve Kurth came back.
Okay.
I can't remember. I think season 3 is when it like relaunches after Cobra Command or something, or after Cobra Civil War. And Mark, while we're talking about G.I. Joe artists who show up for these Devils Do Reloaded issues, who had never drawn G.I. Joe before, or had they, let's all remember that, okay, so Ron Lim is a big deal in comics because he drew a really long, great run on Silver Surfer in the early 90s. And when George Perez had scheduling or deadline problems on the Infinity Gauntlet, Ron Lim finished it and did a great job. And then Ron Lim drew all of its sequel, Infinity War, and its sequel, Infinity Crusade, all while also drawing Silver Surfer. There were a couple months in like 95 where Ron Lim was drawing 4 Marvel comics a month. Anyone remember Night Watch? Or is it Death Watch? The guy looks just like Spawn. It didn't last very long. Anyway, so Ron Lim's stuff had some pizzazz back then. And over the years, it's gotten a little less pizzazzy, but it's still, reliable. His storytelling is always clear. And he's always someone who, in this like list in the back of my head, it's like, who's a Marvel guy who didn't draw G.I. Joe, but could draw it if you wanted like a good basic G.I. Joe. Well, I wasn't the only person who was thinking that, because folks, back in 1998 and 1999, Bench Press Comics was trying to make a deal with Hasbro to get the license for G.I. Joe and Transformers. And this is before Devils Do. This is a couple years after Marvel. And they get Larry Hama on board for G.I. Joe. They get Simon Furman and Andrew Wildman on board for Transformers. And who was going to draw, good timing on the slide, Mark, who was going to pencil G.I. Joe? Ron Lim. And in fact, Larry Hama wrote a 4-page plot that Lim penciled and Harry Candelario inked. Hey, Harry Candelario, he just rebuilt my website. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. My website is inanimate.com, and I had some problems, and Harry Candelario, who doesn't do comics anymore, he's a web guy. Anyway, so as part of this pitch, Bench Press Comics, which was basically 2 guys and a small crew a little bit later on, they had these 4 pages of G.I. Joe, and Ron Lim penciled them. But they were never published. Like, they were sent to, the listserv or the news group, and they've been living on yojo.com ever since. And so it was both sad that right at the beginning of this exciting new continuity, they have to pull in like a second and a third artist to help with deadlines. And it's Ron Lim, who's probably rushing. That's a bummer. But on the other hand, hey, here's a guy who always kind of coulda, almost shoulda drawn G.I. Joe, and he's actually drawing G.I. Joe.
Very cool. Good.
Okay, should we talk about the final page? Should we get to the? I was going to say, hold this up. These are my notes.
one page with art and dialogue I don't like.
Okay. Yeah.
Panel on the left here. It's Stalker Roadblock. Roadblock is talking with this really gleeful sort of smile on his face, presenting the booms of today, man. Next page, next panel. What's wrong, Block? It's rock and roll. It's a sad Roadblock. That doesn't work. You don't ask what's wrong if someone is looking super happy, the happiest they've ever been, talking about something that's really exciting. Yeah, sorry to pick on something, and then I'll shout out.
No, keep it there. I think what might be happening, I think the plot might have wanted 3 beats here, and we have 2. I think there's this middle beat where when Roadblock says, man, it's supposed to maybe be another panel and he's turning sad, so that then Lady J can say, well, what's wrong? Otherwise, yes, it's totally unmotivated. Like, Mark, what's wrong? Like, no, Mark's happy right now. There's no reason why I would have asked him that.
There we go. And just an observation in the art, and I've picked on just a random page here, but I'm seeing a lot of like Larry Stroman, who's most famous for run on X Factor.
He
when everything was a little bit more extreme.
He lives a couple miles from me.
Ooh.
Yes. Larry Stroman, best known for X Factor during Mutant Genesis, and then his creator-owned book at Image Tribe.
So the art is a little bit extreme, a little bit everything's a bit extra, a little bit squishy. You can see it here in sort of the faces. They're just a bit bigger, a bit more exaggerated. Big hands here that Storm Shadow has got. Sorry, did I say Storm Shadow? I meant Tommy has got clenched. That was a poke there. Through most of this, Storm Shadow is called Tommy by Cobra Commander, which I felt was just a little bit over familiar. So yeah, not a massive point there. It was just an observation about the sense that I was getting from some of the art.
I wanted to point out.
Flick to another one. I'm seeing that sort of that squishiness in the faces that I'm seeing, that I think of as being Stroman-esque. And Hawk here with clear glasses. A couple pages earlier. Sunglasses. But maybe they're reactive lenses.
I think Doc threw a flashbang grenade at him, and the lenses like switched. Something interesting happens. This is neither good nor bad. This is just interesting. Maybe it's good. In issue, where's my notes? In issue 5, we start to get references to a different origin for Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. In issue 5, on page 1, here it is. Storm Shadow says, Storm Shadow's talking to Cobra Commander, and he says, Snake Eyes, it sickens me to think that he could betray you, Cobra Commander, to serve the same treacherous dogs, that's like the American military, who murdered our mother and destroyed his face. Defeat, Storm Shadow? Did I just hear you say Cobra has been defeated? And then Cobra Commander gives Storm Shadow a hard time. And then it happens again a few pages later. Storm Shadow, what they're fighting, and Storm Shadow says to Snake Eyes, your father was a legend for that skill among the Yamabushi, to walk on snow and leave no footprints. But my father could snap a bull's neck with one hand. And I thought, yes, John Ney Reiber is totally within his rights to, in small ways or big ways, change the dynamic between these two characters and create a new mythology. Like it's not going to connect back to the Vietnam War. And when he says brother here and like, did he say our mother? Is that on page 1?
Yeah.
Our mother, but then he refers to different fathers. So they are half brothers.
There was one more, I think one more page that you'd highlighted that we
is it the final page of this entire 6-issue run?
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Can you go full screen for this? I'm just going to talk through this for a second. Close-up panel of Snake Eyes snapping the bonds that connect his wrist to his ankles because he's tied up and he's in a helicopter. And now, small panel, he's got his hands in front of his knees, whereas his hands were tied behind. And then a panel of him sort of rushing over in front of Storm Shadow, who's seated in the cockpit, like driving the helicopter. And then there's a panel like down on the ground, and the Joes are illuminated by some bright yellow light, and it says "Fawoom!" And then a big panel of Snake Eyes walking on the beach away from a giant fire and some smoke, and then Scarlet says something. Okay, now you can go back to a view of us. And I thought, okay, this is a way that you can visualize someone crashing a helicopter into the beach and it blows up. And the implication is that Storm Shadow's dead, or he definitely got away because he's an awesome ninja bad guy. And we just assume that he's dead. And then when he comes back in 5 or 10 issues, it's like, oh, he survived. But this absolutely feels like this needed another page, and they ran out of space. And, ran out of space is a really indirect way of saying it. But either John Ney Reiber wrote too much plot for the number of pages he had, wrote too much plot for this page, and this page, notice how many times I said the word "and" when I described what was happening on this page, and each "and" might imply a new panel. And I don't have to see the helicopter crash, and we did see the helicopter previously, so it's not like it hasn't been established. But for such a big moment, their duel in the desert, an issue or two before, this backstory that they seem to have. Also, even in this new continuity, you just bring to it as a reader the weight of all of their years of, comic book continuity from the other universe. But I don't see any part of the helicopter in that big fire in the background. I don't see helicopter parts. And it doesn't have to be a 2-page splash. Boom. It doesn't have to be a 1-page splash. I don't think it wants to be a small panel. I think maybe a regular size panel, like a 1/4 of a page or a 1/6 of a page. But this does feel like John Ney Reiber didn't give himself space to write it. Or is this Ron Lim? Who is this? Issue 6. Yep. It's at the bottom of my pile.
It's Javier Salters. Yep.
Or Javier Salters, didn't give him. There is no space. It's impossible to show as many things as this page, I think, really wants to show. And this has happened on some previous pages, but this is the final page of the issue and the final page of the arc. So not a good ending.
And they may have also had time pressure as well, that it's easier to draw a guy and a cloud or plume of smoke rather than a big helicopter crash or wreckage and that kind of thing. So
absolutely. So I'm not trying to pile on here, but Mark, when you got to this page, were you either confused or let down?
Probably let down.
Okay.
Yeah. It felt, again, like you say, sort of missing a bit of clarity on the crash and how Snake Eyes got away. And then this is a bit of a mirror to what happened earlier on in the series as well. I think it might be in issue 1 where Snake Eyes rescues the Joes by taking sort of grabbing Major Blood and taking off a transponder and throwing it away, and then a rocket flies in and blows up, and then in the confusion somehow Storm Shadow is able to sort of swoop down and pick up Major Blood, and a lot of that kind of happens off panel, and it's like, yeah, that sequence just didn't seem to work. So this is what page I can pull it up.
Okay. Yeah, the actual panel where Snake Eyes jumps onto the this scene is confusing because even though if you go back like another page or two before,
you've got him hiding on the top of the helicopter.
There are two different helicopters and they do look different, and one is facing left and the other is facing right, and yet still I can't quite follow it.
So Snake Eyes is on top of a helicopter. The Joe team are sort of on the ground. He sees another helicopter coming down, firing a rocket. He realizes somehow that Major Blood has got a transponder on him, which is guiding that missile towards him. So he jumps down, grabs Major Blood, slices off his vest and throws it away. And that then follows the vest and away from the rest of the Joes. So it blows up harmlessly. But then the same helicopter flies down and somehow grabs Major Blood. It feels like there's a moment that is missing, because just grabbing someone off of the ground from a helicopter feels like a complicated thing to do.
Can you go back 2 pages? Okay, can you zoom in on that top panel? Oh, they're not. Wait, are they in the helicopter or are they next to helicopter?
Next to the helicopter. Yeah.
Okay, so I just couldn't follow this top panel. So this is Snake Eyes jumping into the middle of all the Joes, surprising them, and grabbing Major Blood. And then in the next 3 panels, he's running away with them. And I like that bit of dialogue where Duke says, Cobra, right? Duke thinks it's a Cobra, that a Cobra's come in to rescue another Cobra. But like, these poses are so awkward, and there's a little bit of a left to right happening here on that first panel.
Here's the one where Flint appears as well.
Right. Yes, it's Stalker with his complexion incorrect. And now Mark is adding a goatee so that we know that it's Stalker. You know what I was also thinking? In our episode about G.I. Joe Reborn, you put on screen a couple pencil sketches by Blaylock and Tim Seeley, and it was costume designs. Yeah. And I don't think that those costume designs are necessarily weak. And I don't actually think that, remember, like 2 of them were like really sketchy and like sort of not like fully drawn. I don't think that makes a big difference, but I do think that symbolically, I keep looking for a symbol, like what represents, what panel or what bit of dialogue or what decision going into Reborn and Reloaded represents symbolically it faltering, or the like beginning of a cascade of negatives. And compare the Tom Riley costume designs for the Energon universe, where it's that same pose over and over, front and back. I guess this drawing is sort of tighter, this drawing of Stalker that you just put up on screen, which definitely looks like Blaylock. And you know, like that Stalker here looks like he's in like a New York street gang. Like he looks like he's in a 70s blaxploitation movie. He's got a long leather jacket and a beret and twin pistols and maybe leather pants, I can't tell. And then like a necklace and a turtleneck. Like his style here looks like it belongs to a certain era. This isn't Los Angeles, right? This isn't Hawaii. This isn't Alaska. This is New York or Detroit or Philly. Like awesome. But I sort of wondered, like, are these sort of were some of the other character designs that were a little sketchy? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not remembering them fairly. Maybe they are plenty tight. But I do think, going back to this other topic that you and I had in terms of designs and visuals, that better color for this arc, because everything is really, really rendered, lots of light sources. Doesn't matter what time of day, if someone's inside or outside. But like if it's a very obvious G.I. Joe helicopter and a very obvious Cobra helicopter, if it's a bunch of Cobra bad guys in like blue Cobra soldier, I guess I said this already. I just need stormtroopers, man. It's very clearly bad guys. And I'm going to look over my notes to see if I have anything really interesting left to say, but I feel like we're wrapping up now.
Mostly, yeah. I said I'll save one point that you'll like for the end. I put Stalker randomly goes off at Snake Eyes at one point when he first meets him, which I think is in issue number 2. He's sort of like, who's this guy?
Like,
Snake
you
Eyes?
left me behind.
And then he pokes him in the chest, and he goes, "Oh yeah, he's reminding me that actually I told him to leave me behind." It was weird. He sort of swing. Here he goes. He goes, wait a minute, Snake Eyes. Did you just address homeboy here as Snake Eyes? I knew a man called Snake Eyes. Brother left me in a hellhole in Uzbekistan. That rings a bell with you, Snake Eyes. Shellshock's prison. You left me to rot. And then he swings at him. 18 months. Maybe doesn't sound like much here outside, but in that hellhole, being locked in the dark in the stinking cage with the best of it, and Snake Eyes pokes him, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, actually, I told him to go." It's like, what? What is the point of that? And I think I remember that bit making me angry at the time, and it made me angry again, and it's making me angry now. So there was that, and then on Rock and Roll's mission, where he's diving off on his solo mission, accompanied by Snake Eyes. And that whole mission was just a little bit odd. It felt like Firefly was single-handedly holding a whole nation to hostage, then blows up his bombs, and then Saudi Arabia decides to pay the ransom anyway, and then Rock and Roll just randomly arrives and beats him up, and then wins. It was a little bit of a strange and felt unnecessary mission, but I had an I Spy, so let's play the button.
I spy with my little eye.
I spy that Rock and Roll and Snake Eyes have borrowed Batman's rebreather from his utility belt. I looked up online what an actual rebreather looks like, and it is this massive bit of kit. So in terms of like trying to ground, if you're saying Reloaded is going to be a more grounded, grown-up version of G.I. Joe, I don't think that's it. They go, oh yeah, there's that gadget that Batman's got in the animated series. That's really cool. Let's just give them that. So there's that. Can you go
5 pages earlier? Do you have them in order? The guy in the trench coat who comes and gets, hey everyone, it's Clancy from G.I. Joe Extreme. Yes, thank you very much. The first time, the only time anyone has made a G.I. Joe Extreme joke like that. And folks, if you haven't seen the G.I. Joe cartoon, trust me, that was a really funny joke, because this definitely looks like Clancy from G.I. Joe Extreme.
Or that guy from Back to the Future, Rufus, who's come to not Back to the Future, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Were you about to make another point about the rock and roll solo mission?
Not especially. It just upset me. And this guy's was drawn by a couple of different artists as well, so he does look radically different from scene to scene. And that continuity of his very specific sunglasses changing across those sequences as well. Sort of go on.
Not looking past issue 6. Am I missing something? We don't know who this is, right? Okay, this is just a mystery guy, and Rock and Roll says he has a spook vibe, as if he's in the CIA, and
I think he seems to be the guy that is like the flag. Maybe he is like an unnamed flag. He sort of seems to be the guy behind Hawk, sort of pulling the strings, getting their funding.
Yeah, because Hawk has said it's okay, he can stay in jail because when he needs to get out, he'll get out. And doesn't Cobra Commander make a reference? Like, oh, Hawk's got someone or some entity above him or behind him.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to talk, I know we're wrapping up, but I want to talk for a minute about sort of the like overall sense of G.I. Joe here, separate from costumes. So I guess the closest comparison, and I don't think it's a very good comparison, and I haven't read the first story arc in IDW's Origins in a long time, but Larry Hama wrote that story arc, which was mostly drawn by Mike Hawthorne, right? Back in 2008. And it's like an origin for the Pit and like a villain who's not Cobra Commander, but is like an adversary for G.I. Joe, before G.I. Joe's really had any missions. And I can't remember if the team is sort of getting to know each other, or if there are maybe even moments in Larry Hama's declassified 3-issue mini for Devil's Due where some of the team members are meeting each other for the first time. And again, these 3 stories don't actually compare. But what's really different in this first Reloaded arc is that some of the Joes have a history, right? Like Beachhead has it out for Lady J because previously she washed out of his training. And Stalker has it out for Snake Eyes, but not really. They were in prison together in the 6-page prologue. And Roadblock and Rock and Roll meet for the first time when they're both going undercover, but they immediately have a bond and they're going to be buddies. But I was thinking, sort of reading this, what is my sense of them as a team? And it's so early and it's only starting to coalesce because they barely, I don't think they even refer to themselves as, like, G.I. Joe is sort of an indirect reference one time, I think, whereas Cobra has a name and has a logo, although there is a different version of it on Cobra Commander's shoulder at one point. It's more like a snake that's coiled. But it's part of the sort of different or disorienting feeling here is that the Joes aren't always in their costumes. Their costumes don't feel like costumes. They keep sort of being one step behind, like, oh, the drone's heading out. We got to meet up with the other guys. It's like, we got to split up. You go up the mountain, we'll go up the mountain. We got to split up. You go down the alley, we'll go in an alley. We're in jail. Like, we're going to Hawaii. Okay, one of us gets sent away. I don't know about Snake Eyes. And so I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just sort of observing. There's this feeling that it's almost like this is a prologue story and they're going to be a team after this arc where they'll have a headquarters that we sort of get to see, and maybe it has a name, and they'll have sort of more familiarity with each other. In that lineup of sort of characters liking or not liking each other, Scarlet likes Doc. Doc doesn't like Beachhead, but also helps Beachhead when he's shot. And so I'll just file this under interesting and sort of not a G.I. Joe that I'm familiar with, where they're a team, but they're barely a team because they sort of form it like 1 a.m. in the middle of this very fast moving Cobra plan that I think is more interesting than it was depicted, because the way that it was depicted was really choppy across the two specials and then the first issue, with some unclear storytelling and a lot of bouncing around of geography, and even sort of going back. I'm slightly changing topic here in my sort of disorientation to in issue 1, in that text at the beginning on the inside front cover, it mentions Mount Silver and Black Dragon 6. BD6 is an extremely powerful remote controlled warplane. And I sort of, do you have this second page of the first issue? And
the splash page of the jet.
Yeah. And what was the name of the militia from the special that, so in the same way that G.I. Joe, I'll talk about this page in a minute and then I'll be done. In the same way that G.I. Joe is sort of formed and not formed, sort of defined and yet still not, Cobra is much more defined. And the like thing where Destro is sort of in and sort of out, and he likes Baroness, and Cobra Commander has some characters that are more loyal, and you get the feeling that like Major Blood is more. Also, what happened to the Major Blood subplot? Weren't his boats going somewhere?
That continues. Yeah,
okay,
they've invaded this Hawaiian island, and that's continuing into issue 7. But you made the point about the militia that was invented in G.I. Joe Reborn #1, and I thought that was interesting that they're sort of gathering together these different militias and bringing them under the Cobra umbrella, and that was quite an interesting idea, which goes nowhere and is forgotten about.
Yeah, and I feel like if there was one bit of dialogue and one panel in issue 1 or 2, and then another one in issue like 5 or 6 or 4 or 5, where Major Blood or Cobra Commander or one of these unnamed bad guys with a ponytail sort of makes the point that like, well, some of my guys aren't getting along with the others, or like, well, I'm Squad 6 and we're going to meet up with like Squad Black Diamond. They're from the West Virginia militia and we're from the Pennsylvania, where Cobra Commander is like, gives a speech. It's like, I've brought you all together, even though you've been different. And I feel like there's a thing that's missing, which just goes back to my criticism that there are too many elements, characters, locations, and MacGuffins across these 8 issues. And some of them get dropped. Some of them, I guess, will come back next issue, and that's totally fine. Some of them do happen, but they get rushed, like Snake Eyes doing this suicide thing on the helicopter on the final 2 pages of issue 6. But it's too bad, because that militia thing felt so much in that sort of Paul Jenkins real world grievance of Cobra from the original special. And either John Ney Reiber didn't agree with it, or didn't know what to do with it, or was going to get back to it but didn't stick around, or the editors were like, no, that's enough, but as you said, they don't do something with it, and that's a missed opportunity. Okay, my final comment. I just rewatched the Star Wars sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9, and J.J. Abrams did not invent this, but I was just reminded of what a good job he and his visual effects people do in episodes 7 and 9, that when they have these really, really big spaceships, like the Star Killer base, or like the weird Star Destroyer that's like bigger than the old Star Destroyer, but I don't know if it's bigger than the old Super Star Destroyer. There's always something in front of it that gives you a sense of scale. Like 2 TIE fighters fly toward it, and you're like, oh, I understand. That new First Order Star Destroyer is like 85 times bigger than, what I thought it was, because these 2 little planes are flying toward it and getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Oh, it's in front of a planet. Okay, now I understand. And this is a thing that you have a little less of in some older sci-fi movies, because overlapping, whether literally in one shot or just on screen at the same time but not touching various elements, was like one extra step in your optical printing pass. And I sure wish, if you go back to that like they've talked about how scary and powerful this Black Dragon 6 is. And this page, man, and this is the second page of issue 1. I turned the page and I just shrugged my shoulders. Like, well, if this was a Night Raven, at least some of the readers would say, cool, I had that toy, or cool, my older cousin had that toy, but I'm new to G.I. Joe. But this is a thing that I didn't get a good look at the end of the G.I. Joe special. And I don't have a thing in front of it to show me that it's really, really big or really, really small. So it's a real missed opportunity for an entire page, which is a lot of real estate.
Yeah, and I mean it's when they had it before at the end of the G.I. Joe special, it was not very well drawn and a bit confusing, and it's a sort of a standard sort of black jet thing. It's not got any particular distinguishing features. It looks a bit. It's not even got. You can't see like any ordnance on it. There's nothing to give it scale. There's no reaction. It's a bit. Yeah, it's a bit boring, isn't it? As a splash page, and as you say, page 2 of the entire first issue. It's not giving you a wow factor. Despite perhaps that being the intention, that it's like, wow, there's the weapon that we've been talking about. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, if this was a movie, you'd have the sound effect and maybe it flies and you see some trees, shake, or someone's looking up and they go, wow, I guess you have a version of that on the next page.
Yeah, in the movies, maybe it would be like explosive and they'd all duck down because of the explosive kind of velocity of the speed of it and all the rest of it. But
so my 2-word review of these 6 issues is noble failure.
I think that's fair. Yeah, probably can't top that with any summary that I could. Noble failure, perhaps, and but it was interesting to see beyond issue 6 how they, where do they go next? Does it continue much as the same? Do they redeem it in any way? And with a change of writer with, I believe, issue number 10, what does that do to the series, Tim? So,
well, I do know that the next time we talk about this, we'll be talking about Duke versus Snake Eyes. I'm for those of you listening, I'm holding up the bottom of the final page of issue 6.
And here's the thing, Tim.
Yeah.
Brand new series. No letters page, no reaction to Reborn or the first few issues of issue 1 through 6. So they would have been talking about it this big time on the message boards back in the day, but no written records here of people's reactions to those specials or these first few issues, which is disappointing.
Did we, when we read Master and Apprentice or Master and Apprentice 2, did they definitely not have letters pages? Or they did, which was sort of unusual because limited series tend not to. It's funny, in a way, I'm not surprised that this series doesn't have a letters page. And I think this sort of subtle thing that there isn't a credited editor, I don't say that as a criticism. I just mean like, I'm trying to find symbolism here. Like someone's definitely in charge, but I think on the one hand, I think Devil's Due is spread a little thin at this point. They've got the Voltron license and they've got the, a G.I. Joe crossover, and they're doing, what else? They've got, right, here it is. Here's an ad for the second G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. Oh, and they're doing the Aftermath universe. Doesn't that get advertised in the final 2 issues? This like superhero sci-fi universe with 4 new series written by like Marv Wolfman and Joe Casey and someone else, Ron Mars. And that doesn't last very long. So I think there's a bubble bursting in 0405. And Devil's Due was riding high in 2001, and they've expanded, and the market actually doesn't want 3 or 4 G.I. Joe comics in a month at this point.
Yeah, and also I think sort of editorially, I think it's probably a little bit of the time where there's a gap between Mark Powers coming on and then subsequently Mike O'Sullivan. And I did actually get in contact with Mark Powers recently, and I mentioned that we'll be talking about this book, and his recollection was that he wasn't really around when it was initially launched, but he generally enjoyed what the creative team did on the book. So I think some of this launch that probably while editorial was possibly being stretched a little bit thin, and before they've kind of shaped up with a beefed up editorial presence, perhaps.
And Micronauts and Street Fighter. Devil's Due, and Army of Darkness and Dragonlance. I think Dragonlance was through the Dobble brothers, but at this point, in 2004, Devil's Due has 4 or 5 licenses, and still is trying to get back to its homegrown stuff. And they're doing like 2 to 6 conventions every spring and summer, and it's just a lot to get through.
So there we go. We will be covering probably G.I.Joe Reloaded 7 through 9, I guess, as our next episodes, filling out the Ney Reiber run. And then I think we'll do a third part, which is 10 through 14, the Chuck Dixon era of that. So when we've got an off week, when we're not talking about the latest comics coming out, then we'll record something for that, and our Patreon members will be the first people to see that, as they were the first people for this episode. I imagine that I don't know the timing of when we'll put this out, but I imagine they will have seen it a little bit in advance. So if you want to be like the cool kids, visit patreon.com/talkingjoe. And big thanks to Richard, Sam, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig D, Shane V2. This version, I don't know. He's wearing sunglasses, probably. Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, Gary V, Coldroff, and B. They are getting early access to content and some exclusive bits here and there. If you are new to Talking Joe, you can find us talkingjoe.co.uk. That points us to all the places that we can be found. Make sure that you have liked and subscribed over on YouTube. And why not get involved in the Facebook group where you can see the latest news and get involved in the discussion around these episodes. Tim, where can you be found when you're not talking to me about G.I. Joe?
YouTube channel, that's Atomic Abe, video essays on television and film. Comic book store, Hub Comics, just outside of Boston. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com.
Very good. And after all of this thoughtful discussion of the Reloaded continuity, any final thoughts to just leave us with as we wrap up?
Yes, in issue 3, page 2, panel 2, I'm reminded when this guard says, "Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast."
Laters.